All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado, owner of Play in School. Today, we're heading back down to Miami, Florida to catch up with my buddy Richie Palmer from Elite Squad. It's been, I think, 3+ years since our last conversation. He was one of our first guests on January 2nd. Can you believe this, Richie? 2019. Welcome back, man. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me back. And no, I can't believe it's been that long.
2019.
But you've done a good job, and we've done a good job of staying in touch. So it's not like we haven't talked to each other since then.
Right.
It's been a while since I've been on the show with you.
So you're a repeat guest here. That's rare air. There's only been a handful of repeat guests. So I want to welcome you back with open arms.
It makes me feel special. Thank you.
If anybody wants to go hear that episode, go to playinschool.com/Palmer. Playinschool.com/Palmer. You can get to know him, his background. What we're going to try and do today is just literally just catch up, shoot the breeze, and listeners of recent episodes are probably familiar with a lot of sort of like what I call my standard regular questions. So we'll hit some of those that we definitely didn't hit in the that first conversation. But let's just dive into it, man. What are you up to? What's new, different? What have you added? What have you deleted?
Sure. I think the last time that I was on your show, I had just started. I think I was in my second year of the academy.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot. I turned 40 this year, and I've been in the travel ball world, and I started Elite Squad when I was 26 years old. Things have certainly changed. You and I jokingly we're talking about how the world's changed after COVID, but I think every year you learn, and every year brings new challenges and different things. In 2019, I had just opened my facility. I was probably close to a year into it. And, was starting the academy and now as I sit and talk to you, I actually sold that business, sold the facility side, South Florida for many reasons. South Florida real estate is not cheap, but it wasn't even about that. I had a huge opportunity to team up with a gentleman by the name of Mike Barwis, who, for those of, your listeners that are into like the sports performance world, I suggest you guys Google him and look at the stuff that guy's done. Not only is he amazing when it comes to sports science and sports performance, but he's an unbelievable person. So the opportunity came to where I could move my academy out of his facility, and we're actually working on building a field together near the facility. So, in 2024, right around Christmas, we hope we ring in the new year with a brand new Elite Squad baseball field, turf, and all the bells and whistles. It's been anytime you're doing construction, I don't care if it's home or what it may be, it's always a process. So it's an easy process, but one that's definitely well worth it. So we got some exciting stuff going on for sure.
Hey, Richie, I don't know if your Bluetooth kicked in or kicked out. But you definitely got.
I'm sorry, Rich. I thought. Did you get all that?
I did. It just changed in level of volume.
That's my car, the Bluetooth, sorry.
That's whatever you're doing now is much better. So
okay.
Now what I bet you most people would be shocked about, because South Florida is like a baseball hotbed.
Yes.
Getting access to fields is just as difficult down there as it is in many different spots around the country. In fact, I have found it to be harder in parts of South Florida. So having your own field is really going to just open up opportunities for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. And for the reasons you said, you wouldn't think so, it being such a hotbed for baseball down here. But the reality is it's a metropolis, I guess, and there isn't a whole lot of land left. And the little bit that there is, and anytime there is a field, it's usually either owned by the city, or in order for you to use that field, you have to have X amount of kids from that city, or they don't let you rent it out for, certain reasons, or this team's got it rented, so it's not easy to get your own field. But, once we have our own field, I mean, we're basically going to run everything through there in terms of, our college camps, our showcases, our academy practice, our travel teams practices. We're just going to be able to do so much more for the players that are involved, not only in Elite Squad, but even the community around there. Because it's not going to be, one of those things where, yes, we're building it, but we also are going to have teams. Listen, we're out of there at, from the academy, we finish practice at 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. At night, if we don't have a game, I want kids, and myself and Mike have talked about it, whether it be travel teams, whether it be go use the field, more fields available for kids to play and practice, the better. And we're going to be involved with giving coaching clinics in the community and stuff like that. We got very fortunate with the city to support us on this. So our way of giving back is to be involved in the community side of things. So it's super exciting, man.
Now, I think I see on the website you're in addition to the academy, you also have a post grad, correct?
Well, they are part of our academy.
So that's under one umbrella. I think it's worth sort of just in case there's somebody who's a first time listener who maybe isn't super familiar. When we're using the word academy or post grad, what we're talking about here, especially with the academy piece, is sort of an alternative to the traditional high school 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right?
Correct.
So in Florida, you guys have, pre-COVID and everything, I believe you guys call it, is it Florida virtual school, straight through the public school system, right?
Yeah, so there's now, pre-COVID, I think FLVS, what they call it, Florida Virtual Schools,
yep.
Was the biggest and basically the only one. And then, so many things in this world change after COVID. We see it with the NCAA, we see it everywhere, but so did online schooling. And, we had an influx, and I hate to say this, but in a way, I hate to say we benefited from COVID, because nobody did. But I think it opened up people's eyes to, hey, listen, I can tell you what happened in 2021. The kids were forced to start school online down here in Florida. So a lot of the parents are like, look, I went through it with my daughter. My son or my daughter has to sit in front of a computer for 8 hours. This is tough. So what Florida virtual schools and what, international studies and a couple other schools that have popped up that are online, they allow you the flexibility to do the schooling at your own pace, in a sense. So yes, you have assignments due, you have everything due, but you're not forced to be in front of a computer for 8 hours a day. So what a lot of kids did was or a lot of the parents were like, hey, look, I'd rather have my son who loves baseball, wants to go play in college. Some of those kids were already committed to a school, instead of him having to be in front of a computer for 8 hours a day. And by the time he's done, he's exhausted. And you know how it is. If you sit in front of a computer for 8 hours a day, you go home, you don't want to do anything but watch Netflix and wake up and do it. You have to do it again the next day. It's a lot of people's lives. So those parents approached me and said, hey, look, we're interested in doing this. And our enrollment grew because of what kind of the school system was during that time. Now it's become, more and more, I guess, socially accepted amongst people. Because I know back then it was like, oh, you do online schooling, that's no good, whatever. But I give credit to those schools too. They've also done a very good job of putting together a curriculum to where, we're going to allow you to go at your own pace, but we're also going to hold you accountable, make sure you're learning, make sure that you are getting the credits necessary to move on and be a college student when you graduate from us. So there's
a little bit of nuance in there that's really worth getting specific about. In case anybody who's new to this doesn't know, I actually used to be a sports marketing teacher at a high school here in Richmond, Virginia. So I've spent time in the classroom, and what I witnessed and the nuance here that needs sort of explaining is when we're talking about these online programs that your players are mostly participating in, is a very flexible schedule where they're going to be able to do basically school on demand, because a lot of this is like pre-recorded. What we really, as almost the entire nation, got wrong during COVID when we sent kids home is we tried to use our tools like Zoom to replicate the in-person experience, and it failed miserably. And so what you're talking about where your kids were sitting in front of a screen for 8 hours is because they were watching their teacher teach through in a live setting. And that it just doesn't, for what what we're trying to do, that's not the best use of the technology. The best use of the technology is like, hey, let's get the best professor or teacher of this subject to pre-record the lecture.
Yep.
And then the kid can watch that on his own time. Whatever, like my kid does better in the morning than at night. So my kid would want to do it, when he wakes up, right after breakfast. But some kids really, man, they're good at like 8 o'clock at night. So that kid would want to watch that lecture. And then everybody's working on the assignments sort of in parallel, followed up with the quizzes or tests. But it's not, hey, the lecture is today at 1:30 and we all have to sit there at the same time.
Exactly.
The flexibility.
Well, I'll take it a step further, Rick. I'll take it a step further. You own a house, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when something breaks at your house and you don't know how to fix it, what do you do? Without calling somebody, but you're going to try to do it yourself.
I'm going to YouTube.
Yeah, 100%. I do that for everything.
Yeah.
Whether it's something with computers, whether it's something with building a web, whatever. I go on and I go through YouTube. Yeah. If I have to fix something at the house, I don't know how to do it, but my wife wants me to fix it. So I go on YouTube, and I can't tell you the amount of things that I've been able to scratch off the honey-do list, through YouTube. Correct. And stuff like that. Because I think when you grow up in the game of baseball, like I did, let's face it, you don't have the same real-world experiences as somebody who, went and started working at 16 years old and had to figure out things for himself. So, I feel embarrassed at times with my family. I come from a very handy family, and I'm the black sheep that doesn't know how to do anything. So I've learned, I just go on YouTube and I'll from, fixing a dryer or whatever it may be, and it's got everything on there. And then kind of the same, to go to your point, I'm not saying that the online education is YouTube, but you're right. Like,
it's on demand.
On
the point is it's
Correct.
on demand and on your schedule. What that allows to kind of pull that string is what that allows is the flexibility to, instead of having the kid sit at a desk from 8 o'clock until 3 o'clock, where a lot of kids, that's not the right environment for them. Now I'm looking at my kid. Going, I'm not sure my kid's going to thrive in that environment. So you get them on-demand classes so that then they can go and dive deep into a passion, a love, and for your kids it's baseball. For other kids it's music. For some kids it's going to be. And I'd heard this, and you might be able to sort of speak to it. Florida Virtual School's been around for a long time, and that allowed a lot of kids who weren't from well-to-do families to go get jobs because they weren't locked into the traditional brick-and-mortar school.
Correct. No, look, and I'm somebody who, I went to a traditional high school. I coached at a traditional high school. So I'm not somebody that's sitting there and saying that this is better for everybody and this is what, no, like it's not. For some kids, it's not a better environment. But for a lot of the kids that I personally have, they came to us for a reason.
Of course.
Whether it be, they were at a school that really didn't support baseball, whatever it may be, or they want to achieve more in baseball. That's simple. Hey, look, I only get to work on baseball 2 hours a day with my current schedule. I want to do more. I want to play at a high level. So I want to, we work out every day. That's something that I know when I was a high school coach, the only time we worked out was, twice a week in the fall. And then once spring rolled around, we never saw the weight room because we weren't either football was using it or you weren't allowed to, or you didn't have the time to. So, kids come to us from different backgrounds and or different reasons as well. And to touch upon what you said, Rich, I got this I got this question a lot when I first started, the academy, and they were like, so wait, coach, you're going to have these boys, we start at 10 a.m. A big reason for that is because I remember being a kid. I remember being a student. Not a whole lot. I didn't get a whole lot done before 10 a.m. My school started at 7:30 in the morning, and I think I was probably half asleep through 90% of it.
Correct.
So I want these kids showing up in the morning, well rested, excited to get to work, motivated, and they're teenagers. I'm not stupid. I know that I would love for them to all go to bed by 9 o'clock at night, but I know they don't do that. So I want them showing up to the field with good energy, being ready to get the most out of every day. And then we're done right around 4 o'clock between our practices and then our workouts. Like I mentioned, we do it every day. We're done around 4 o'clock. And I remember, mom asking me, like, coach, so you mean to tell me that, you're going to train from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then my son's going to have to come home and do schoolwork? And I said, Mrs. So-and-so, with all due respect, currently, what time does your son start school?
Correct.
She's like 7:30 a.m. I said, okay. What time does he get out? Well, 3 o'clock. I said, okay. What about baseball practice? She's like, well, he practices at 4 till about 6:30, 7 o'clock. And I go, does he have any homework afterwards? She's like, I know where you're going with this. I said, that's my point.
Yeah.
Like, everywhere you go, you're going to have to work. You know, you're going to have to do schoolwork. And now with us, for some kids, this is a lot better because they're able to do it at their own pace, and we monitor it. We make sure that they're not falling behind. We're very disciplined in it where, you know, if you have, you know, with online schooling, there's certain percentages that they expect you to be at by almost like, you know, a reference. Like, hey, by this date, you should be at, you know, let's just say 75% completion with this class, whatever. And if our kids fall behind in any of that, it's very simple. They come to the facility every day, and they get their schoolwork done until they're caught up. Yeah. I'm not going to leave them at home because that's probably the reason they didn't do it, because they were at home doing nothing. So, you know, hey, you're going to come to the facility and you're going to get that whatever class that's in, you're going to get that percentage up with, you know, the grades A's or B's, or else you're not getting on the field till that's up. And, you know, truthfully, for the amount of kids, we may deal with, you know, class issues with percentage-wise, maybe twice a year with a certain kid, and those kids would probably be that way in any environment. Correct. You know, where they're just, and they're not bad kids, they're great kids, they're not studious kids, you know, and I've coached a lot of those kids. They're great kids, they just, their favorite thing to do is play baseball, not go to school, you know, and you have to stay on top of those a little bit more.
When I started kind of tracking the academies, you know, obviously back as far as 2019 and maybe before that, I love the idea. But I tell you, this post-grad concept that has been catching on lately, man, that's really impactful for certain kids. I love that, especially in a post-COVID era where all of a sudden, you know, that high school senior, he's going to have a little bit tougher time competing with a 22-year-old, 23-year-old who who might have did a post grad, 2 years in a JUCO, and then transferred to a D1 program. Yeah, good luck with that high school senior coming out of high school to compete with that man. So the when did you open up the post grad, and you know, can you just talk about sort of some of the successes you've seen there?
Absolutely. You know, it's funny you say that because when we first spoke in 2019, I was totally against post-grads. Mm-hmm. Like, I had this misconception
I was too.
Yeah, like, I was pre-COVID, we had so many kids reach out to us like, hey, coach, you know, do you guys take post-grads? I was always like, no. If you're not good enough to go play now, I don't know how much better I'm going to be able to get you, you know, stuff like that. Like, that's just my mindset. And then COVID happened. And then they're giving kids extra years in college. And I'm dealing with it now where, you know, back 4 or 5 years ago, this is from the travel side, I'd be able to pick up I got 2 stories to tell you, but I'd be able to pick up the phone. And as long as that kid matched what I said on the phone when that coach came out to watch him, it was a done deal, you know? And I'll give you 2 quick stories. First one on current recruiting and then how the post-grad programs help. So last summer I had a kid, and I'm going to leave schools out of it, but I had a really good pitcher, 88, 91, could throw 3 pitches for strikes. I call one of the local universities that he wants to go to here in South Florida, have him come out here. Coach is a good friend of mine. He throws that day, and he threw well. Wasn't his best outing. He was the number 1 for us last summer. I think I would label him as the number 1. Pitched the best for us, was really good for me. And but he threw okay that day. Good enough where 4 or 5 years ago, pre-COVID, would have warranted an offer. So after the game, I called the coach. I didn't get a chance to see him in person. I only saw him during the game, and he was sitting back there. So after the game, I call him, and I thank him for coming out. And I asked him to say, hey, what did you think of so-and-so? He goes, you know, Richie, he's good, and I can see why you told me to come out and watch him. But I got to be honest with you, man. I could go get a 21-year-old in the portal with a resume that does the same thing that he does.
Yep.
I said, damn, I didn't even think about that. He goes, yeah. He goes, look, years ago, I would have definitely offered him. So I go, look, I feel bad calling you. It wasn't his best outing. He goes, no. He was good, man. It's just the way that we're in right now. Like, I could go get a 21-year-old, with a resume.
New world, man. We are in a brand new world.
And that same kid has an offer from a mid-major and tells me, hey, just tell him to take this offer. And if he pitches like we know he can, the next year I'll ship him out to that school that he wants to go to. I'm like, what? What are you telling me?
Free agency, buddy.
Well, a coach put it to me the best way. I am now coaching. I'll name him nameless too. He goes, I am now coaching 22 and under travel ball.
Oh
because
God.
He had a kid, one of our former players. I asked him, I said, hey, how's so-and-so doing? I saw he had an awesome freshman year. He goes, man, he put his – and I didn't follow this. It was in the summer. I was probably in Atlanta or running around a tournament. He goes, Richie, he put his name in the portal the last day, and he's off at an SEC school. I said, what? And listen, this is a Power 5 school. I said, what? I go, he started at shortstop for you every game. He's like, I know.
Yeah.
He goes,
it was a
tryout.
It was a tryout for the SEC. That's what it was.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But going into the post-grad stuff, Rich, what you asked me about, and I didn't mean to get sidetracked, because of that stuff, though, that's why I decided to open it up to post-grad kids. We had a kid and how it's benefited. Well, it certainly helped kids, obviously that didn't have options to train, get better. And with our network and their improvement, we've been able to find places for them to go play. But it's also helped, and I'll give you another scenario where because of this COVID stuff and guys getting an extra year, we had a pitcher a couple years ago who was committed to a mid-major school. Well, that pitcher, in order for them to take him, and this is, pretty recent, this is a couple years ago, so it was basically right after COVID, they said, hey, listen, we like you a lot. However, we don't have any more money for you because of, the COVID rules, and we got a lot of guys, whatever. You're going to need to reclassify to a 2022, I want to say. I might get the years wrong, but he's a 2021. You're going to need to reclassify to a 2022, and we'll take you. So that kid said, okay, and it was a local school. He goes, okay, well, what I'll do is, I know this academy. I'll go to this academy. I'll take I'll go there as a senior and then take my gap year with him. So I'm with him for 2 years. All right, perfect. Well, he comes to us. He gets a hell of a lot better. He doesn't end up going to that school. He ends up going to an SEC school because he got that much better.
Yeah.
So it's like, I didn't feel bad for that school in a sense because, number one, I'm always on the player side. These coaches are friends of mine, but at the end of the day, I work for my players. Yeah. So that school was pretty pissed that he had gotten so good and he decided to decommit from them. But at the same time, you're the reason why he did a gap year. You told him to.
Yeah.
You told him to, and he worked, in credit to that kid. He worked his tail off. He got better. We just gave him the tools. We didn't do it for him. We said, hey, look, this is what we're about. This is how we're going to get you better. You got to go and do it, though. And that kid was, again, I know it sounds cliche, first one in, last one out, worked his tail off, pitched his what off, and he ended up going to an SEC school. When he got to that point, he said, hey, Coach, I want to talk to you about possibly decommitting and going to this school. And I said, listen, if that's what you want to do and that's what's in your heart, I'll support you. Mm-hmm. He's like, you think I'm good enough? And I'm like, at first, if you would have asked me this a year ago, I would have said, hell no. Now, I think you could pitch anywhere in the country. So, it worked out for him and he was able to kind of, upgrade, I guess, his situation through taking a gap year. But I think for a lot of kids, post-COVID and it's big for them. I look at myself when I was a high school senior, I probably would have been a gap year kid. You know what I mean? I probably would have benefited from it because I was not a top recruit. I was a good player, but I wasn't the fastest guy. I wasn't the strongest guy. I didn't throw the hardest. I was a good player. And sometimes, you get overlooked. That's why I went junior college. I was not a blue chip prospect. So, there's definitely kids that can certainly benefit from taking a gap year. It's not necessary for everybody. But if you want to play baseball in college and the offers that you have don't align with your vision, you might want to look into that. Now, I'm not going to tell a kid, hey, listen, you only have D2 offers or D3 offers right now. I'm going to turn you into a D1 player. I'm not telling them that either. That's out of my control. I'm going to do everything I can to develop you as a player and as a person. And I will make any phone call that I can to help you, but you're going to have to put in that work. And there's no guarantees in this either. The only thing I can guarantee you is that I'm going to work my tail off and make sure you have a place to go to by the end of the year. Now, where that place is, well, that part is on you, and your performance.
For sure. Now, you already touched on one of the keys to running an academy / post-grad is facilities. So,
yes.
And the neat thing is, because of the way you can do your schedule, if you don't have your own academy, you can partner with a local guy who has a facility and get in there in off hours, right? Makes sense.
Listen, before the academy, and I don't know any facility that has people walking in those doors before 3 o'clock. Correct.
They sit empty. So
right, unless they do adult classes, which I know some people do to keep the building busy. But I can tell you this: 99% of baseball facilities have zero traffic until 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
So let's talk to the coach who's listening, who maybe they're intrigued about starting an academy or a post grad. So that's kind of bullet point one: is go partner with a facility that'll rent to you at dirt cheap, because it's basically free money for them, because you're coming in at 10 o'clock in the morning. Otherwise, the place would be a ghost town. So the facility,
correct.
The facility access, and then part two is the field access, which you're taking care of, hopefully by building your own. What are some other things that are, looking back on it, you maybe had to figure out the hard way that we might be able to save somebody some heartache if they were going to spin up a post grad or an academy program?
Yeah, that's a good question. The way I've learned, unfortunately, is going through some hard times, and that's been the experience is the best teacher, I think, at anything. Obviously you do this and you try to avoid mistakes, and you try to foresee things coming, but there's just some things that hit you in the face. I mean, I tell a story all the time where the first year I started with 17 kids, and by Christmas I was down to 13. Not because I ran them out. It's just, some kids
didn't work.
Thought that they loved baseball. Yeah, they thought they loved baseball until that's all they did.
Yeah.
And they're just like, whoa, coach, and some of those kids were committed already, and it's like, hey, if you can't handle it here, imagine, as time would tell, those kids didn't last in college either. But, again, they're good kids. Just, it's a life. It's your life. If you want to play collegiately, you have to be willing to make this your life. And I think that any college coach that you would have on your podcast would say the same thing. But my advice would be, number one, step one, get a facility. Step two, get a field. Step three is make sure, you're getting kids that understand what this is about. You're not painting flowers, and you're not saying how special and no, you're coming in here to work hard, to get to the next level. This is baseball 24/7. That's the mindset. Is there a school piece involved? Absolutely. But you as a coach can also do things to where it is about baseball, but yet you're going to make it about the team and the environment and the culture, and do some fun things with them as well. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you know what? We've been grinding it for the last month and a half. Today, unfortunately, where we live, we're going to make it a beach day today. You know what I mean? I remember when I was in my old facility, it was pouring out, and I said, you know what? We're going to the movies, guys. And little things like that, I think, go a long way for not only building team chemistry, but also running an academy. It can't always be about baseball. You know what I mean? I know I'm kind of contradicting myself, but you have to find ways to keep those kids feeling like they're part of something, not just showing up every day and going to work. Because at the end of the day, you and I are very fortunate, Rich, to do what we love. But if it was a 9-to-5 job that we were stuck behind a desk all day, we wouldn't be happy people.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with these kids. You know what I mean? If it's just a baseball thing to them, I think that's where I failed early on, where I didn't do enough of the team bonding stuff. It was I was obsessed with getting them better and getting them into college. But I got to remember that they're also kids, and it's okay to take a break from hitting 100 ground balls or 1,000 ground balls and take them to the movies. So I know it's twofold, but you got to get the grinders, and then you got to be able to tell those grinders, hey, let's take a day off today and let's go to the movies.
Yeah, you got to hit the brakes. You got to hit the brakes for a day.
Yeah, and I was just, that's just the type of person I am. I like to think I'm a very hard worker. I'm very disciplined, and I'm tunnel vision. Hey, I got a kid standing in front of me. He's a post-grad kid. I got to get him into college. But I got to remember he's an 18-year-old kid too. And sometimes he may need a break, even if it's just a mental break for a day, just to say, hey, let's go have fun and let's go watch the new Denzel Washington movie as a team,
Yeah.
So, those two pieces, I think those are the biggest things is, find the right families that are bought in, okay, that support you. and that kid wants to grind it out with you. And then once you get those kids, be a coach to them and a mentor to them that, you know what, I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna do some cool stuff with you off the field as well. You know, make it as much of a team environment as you can, not just a, you know, facility environment.
Yeah. Let's shift gears, you know, because I have a personal interest in the academy and the post-grad stuff, but, you know, I do call the show Travel Ball Talk. I want to shift gears. I want to give you a moment to really talk about Elite Squad, the travel organization, and kind of catch us up. You know, where have you been getting on the road? I mean, you live in South Florida. Like a lot of teams are going to come to you, but besides playing, you know, all the top teams in Florida, where else are you heading off to during the normal summer schedule?
We go to, outside of Florida, we go to North Carolina for the USA Baseball, the team championships that they've developed. And then we go to Atlanta. You know, we still go to WWBA and do that. And then everything else is pretty much, like you said, Florida's so competitive. And they have a lot of really good events now between the Palm Beach Classic. You have the UBC that's in Palm Beach. So I'm very lucky that I don't travel as much as I used to because some really good events have come to South Florida or the Palm Beach area, which is just north of me, about an hour north of me. So yeah, I don't travel nearly as much as I used to. That being said, I think North Carolina and Atlanta is pretty much, you know, outside of South Florida, that I have to travel for because I do want to play in the best events. So yeah, I've gotten lucky, man. I've gotten lucky that they built some spring training places down here, and obviously that's a popular host site for any tournament. So they got a ton of fields, you know, spring training fields. So yeah, you know, between the Nationals and the Houston Astros, we play a ton of tournaments from different companies and different, you know, tournament providers. We play a lot of games there, and we play a lot of games at Roger Dean where the Marlins and the Cardinals train. Yeah. And then we'll head up to Atlanta for a week, and then we'll go to North Carolina for a week.
That's there's a lot of people listening right now that are very jealous of that. You know, I talk to these guys from the Midwest, and you know, they jump. These guys are built different, man. It seems like everybody I talk to from the Midwest, these guys are jumping in a 15-passenger van with coach. Mom and dad stay home. They hit the road, and they're home like 25 days later. And
yeah.
You know, you guys are lucky.
That's how my summer was, though, Rich. When I first started, it was like that too. You know what I mean? It was like that too. Remember, we didn't have ballpark of the Palm Beaches built. So, you know, I basically, you know, I could have had a residency in Fort Myers and in Atlanta and anywhere else. But obviously that's not as far as, you know, for me, that's only a 2-hour trip. But, but truthfully, the younger me and you know, and still, like, I kind of enjoy that stuff. I kind of enjoy just being on the road with the boys. And I have 2 daughters at home. So, like, you know, I always say God's got a sense of humor. I got 40 boys a day within the academy, and then I got 20 boys in the summer that I don't mind jumping in the van and spending time with those guys. And, you know, some of my best memories of travel ball were those times. You know what I mean? Riding a van. I remember being in the Final Four in Atlanta, and we lost to an East Cobb Astros team. That was my first year of 17U ever. So we somehow went on a magical run. We lost that day in Georgia, lost the Final Four, and we had to be in Fort Myers the next day for a 9 a.m. game. Perfect game was nice enough to move us to 1 o'clock. Needless to say, we got our asses kicked the next day. But again, that team was special, and somehow we went on a magical run after that too, and we ended up in, I think, the Final Four of the Elite Eight of the BCS. Not even a week later. I think we were basically on the baseball field for 16 days straight, and it was awesome. Like, it was great. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I was a lot younger too. I was like 26, so my body could handle it a lot better.
For sure.
But you know, those are memories that I'll never forget.
And you can still smell that 15-passenger van, I bet.
Oh, I can still smell. I still remember the things that those kids said, and what I spent so much time with them. I mean, I was mind blown with some of the things that they would say. But, you know, again, me being 40, I truly feel like I'm 22 because I'm surrounded by youth every day, and they keep me on my toes, and they certainly do things that make me scratch my head. But you know, I credit them for making me feel young, and some of the best memories I've had are on those road trips and stuff like that. So for those Midwest guys, you know, I feel you. I don't envy you, but I've been there, and I will say that, some of the best memories that I've had have been on those vans and those road trips for sure.
Yeah. And the other part is that style of travel mirrors college baseball much more than, nothing. Hey, you Atlanta guys are probably the luckiest kids in the whole world because everybody comes to them. But it's like you just get in the car with mom or dad, drive 15 minutes, and you're at like the premier tournament facility in the country, and then you go home. That's not like college baseball. You know what college baseball's like is jumping in a 15-passenger van and driving 17 hours to a tournament. That feels like college baseball, and bunking up 4 guys to a room, and you get your Holiday Inn breakfast in the lobby, and maybe you hit Golden Corral after the ball game. Hey,
listen, this is maybe you're right, and maybe this is the coach in me, and there's no way of finding this out. But the teams that I had that had to travel like that, not only did we have the most fun, but I feel like we played better. I feel like we won more. You know what I mean? And again, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to pull data from this, but I would love to see like the performance of those teams that travel together and have to kind of slum it together, how they perform versus the teams that just kind of do their own thing and stuff like that. So again, maybe this is the coach in me, but I don't know. Like I feel like those teams played.
Listen, I don't want to force you to get into a 15-passenger van, but I think
I already bought one, so I think you need to jump in.
I think you need to jump in a bus and do the Miami to Atlanta in a bus with just the players.
Listen, I would be so down for that. I think that would be amazing. Like it would be such a good time, and that's what we do. Not to go back to the academy, but that's exactly what we do. And I think summer ball, it's obviously it's become very individualized by nature with the events and showcases and stuff like that. Like you're getting me thinking, man, I might be driving the 15-passenger van all summer long.
I love it. I love it. That'd be awesome. And when those kids are like, why are we doing this? You can be like, blame that guy Prado, man.
100%. 100%. But you know what? If we win, it'll all be worth it, right?
That's
you say,
it.
Look, thanks so much, Prado.
That's it.
I'm going to start calling you our mental performance coach,
For sure. That's words that nobody has ever spoken before. Listen, I want to hit you with just two more questions off my list. The first one is usually a quickie, but with a recent episode, I thought it was going to be a quickie, and it turned into like a 10-minute conversation. So, and if it does, that's fine. So the first question is really asking about sort of like resources, book, movie, website, Twitter account. Is there anything that you like to recommend to your coaches or even maybe players or parents? Again, it could be a magazine. I don't care. Is there anything you like to send to those guys, on a regular basis? Things that you look at that you find value in.
Yeah, I think so. From a book standpoint, I would say, and one that I read when I was, and probably what a lot of your listeners, their current age is 16 years old, somewhere around there. A lot of kids you work with, high school player. Heads Up Baseball, I know it's a go-to, it's a classic. I think that's very, very useful. My recommendation with that and things that I've learned, throughout time is that, mental performance and being very good mentally is a skill. Mm-hmm. I was very naive where I read the book and I expected to become a better player just because I read it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm 60 years old. I'm like, I read it. I should be a mental warrior now.
Yeah,
I'm like, It doesn't work like that. You have to work on it. But I would recommend it with that understanding. And my high school coach made us all read it. And it's funny because he was probably the worst person for this. Like, he used to just beat us up mentally and physically. But I learned a lot from him, right? Like, I learned what not to be like.
Uh-huh.
But it wasn't, he never told us, like, hey, this is a skill you got to work on. This is something that you guys got to do. He just kind of told us, hey, go read the book. It's really good. It'll help some of you idiots out. You know what I mean?
So in case there's anybody who's been under a rock, Heads Up Baseball is by Tom Hansen and Ken Revizza.
Yep.
And you can literally get it for $2.15 right now on Amazon used. And it lists for $20, but you could buy a new copy of it for $14. But I mean, Go get that used copy for $2. And that's definitely a classic. Are there any others like that you want to just mention?
Yes. Yeah, there's one that I'm currently reading right now, and this was, so I'm getting back into doing the hitting. Although a lot of people don't know, but my background was in pitching. I pitched in college, even though I wasn't a big guy. I was blessed with a good arm. I thought I could hit until I got to college, and they said, "Hey, you're just going to be a pitcher." And I didn't understand it at the time, but now I do. I understand why they did that. So I just pitched in college, and since then my background's always been kind of helping pitchers, but I've always loved the offensive side of baseball, and how challenging it is, because I know it's not easy, and it's probably one of the hardest things to do in any sport. Is to be able to hit a baseball. So this year I've really, I'm going for the academy, and even with travel ball, I want to be more of a guy that hitters come to and be a better hitting coach. So talking to my college coaches that are friends of mine, I said, hey, what do you guys recommend? What do you guys, I've really started to pick their brains, but one common book that they've all told me, like, hey, you should really look into it, is The Pack Offense, by Matt Deggs.
Nice.
So
yes.
I don't know if you've heard of it,
yeah.
But I can tell you this: the first 10 pages, I'm ready to run through a wall for this guy. I'm ready to go. And it's amazing what he talks, and that'll lead me to my next thing. But it's amazing, what he's created, and I haven't even gotten to the part. I don't even know if there is where he even talks about fundamentals of hitting. It's all been about culture, what he does, how he makes these kids believe, and I do agree with him. In the fact that, and I think anybody would, like, hitters get it done in so many different ways. But what really makes them truly elite is yes, they have talent, but their belief, their identity, their approach. And so, like, that book, again, in the first, I think I've read 30 pages so far. I got it last week, as a matter of fact, and, I had a busy weekend. I got it on Friday. So I've only been able to get through, 30 pages, but it's so far, like I said, it's been amazing. I can't wait to finish it. So the first 30 pages, I'm sold. I'm in. Like I said, I'm ready to go play for Coach Deggs if he needs somebody.
Love it.
And that's how good that book has been so far. So I definitely recommend that. And then lastly, from my perspective, I think, in my shoes, if somebody, you asked a question about somebody that might be interested in doing an academy and this and that, and just, as far as coaching, like, nowadays with leadership, I think it's so important, because we're in charge of not only getting these kids better at baseball, but developing young men, at least in my role, right? I'm the head coach of an academy. These boys are with me for so long throughout the day. I spend more time with them than their parents do, for the most part. If you break down the hours per week and, throughout the year, like, I'm developing young men. I'm not just coaching them in baseball. So, anything in terms of leadership, whether it be through podcasts, like, I listen to Brian Kane. I've started recently listening to his podcast. I drive an hour to work every day now. So, I've been diving into the whole podcast, leadership podcast, stuff like that. So I think for a player, I'd say Heads Up Baseball. For a coach, I think, the Pack Offense has been amazing so far. And then just really start diving into leadership, and hearing these coaches speak and just people, whether it be CEOs or whatever, these companies. And there's a reason why they've been so successful. They're amazing leaders. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
So
awesome.
That would be my recommendation.
Cool. Those are a couple really good ones. Let me ask you one final question. This is going to be a travel ball specific question.
Okay.
What is one change that could be made to travel baseball that would have the biggest positive impact?
Certification.
Ooh, tell me more.
Okay. In order for you to run a team or an organization, or this may not even be realistic, but I'm just telling you my wish list. In order for you to be a coach of a team, run an organization, you have to be a certified coach. You have to go through training. You have to go through these steps to where, I think if you do that, you're weeding out the people that are possibly in it for the wrong reasons, or, again, if you have to go through certifications, hey, it probably means something to you. You know what I mean? You're willing to go through this process, not just, hey, well, I got a dad that's willing to foot the boat, for the whole team because his kid, may want to play at the next level, may not, or, sometimes those dads are pushing their kids to play. and they create these teams. And, those teams are built for one person and one person only, and you have a coach that really doesn't care if, to help these kids in college or get them to the next level. He's just doing it because this dad's paying him X amount of dollars to do it. And, I think that, and that's just one scenario. But that I've come across, more recently than in other times, than in years past for sure. But I think if you start doing that, and again, I don't know if it's even realistic, but I think you start, getting the coaches that really want to do this, and are willing to go through this process because they're in it for the right reasons. They care about the game, so they're willing to invest personal hours to get certified. And whether it be to, from an organization where like Perfect Game or whatever it may be, I know this totally goes against probably most tournament organizers' business models, but I think that would improve the people that are involved with travel ball.
Do you mind if I expand on this? Because I like it.
No, go for it. I mean, that's really what I would change.
How about because this is going to have to be done at some sort of whether it's the ABCA or some body like that, a sanctioning body is going to have to sort of coordinate that. So if you're going to do that, go ahead and throw in background checks. Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
100%.
So that's easy.
That's part of the certification.
Correct.
Like in order for you to get certified, you have to go through this process.
Right. And I know that there seems to be, you see that in certain pockets, but you know that it's not 100%. Okay. So if we're doing that, let's go one step farther. At my kids' school, in order to volunteer and be around the kids, we had to go through basically sexual abuse training. And let me tell you, it wasn't super fun. It was kind of...
No, it's not.
It was not super fun at all. It was eye-opening, but let me tell you, powerful. USA Baseball, in order, and this is something that, it's funny because while you're doing it, you're pissed. Yeah.
But in order to play in their events, you have to take a safe sport course.
Yeah.
And granted, it's a couple hours out of your day.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I already did. And they figured out some ways that you're like, I just did it last year. You know what I mean? But they require a background check. They require you to take the safe sport compliance test, which talks about, child abuse. It talks about sexual abuse, talks about all that stuff. And you know what? Your human nature tells you, man, I'm so busy. Like they're making me do this for a couple hours. But at the same time, I respect them for doing it.
Absolutely.
They want to make sure that the right people are around kids.
Yeah.
And, us talking about this, it reminded me of that. I'm like, you know what? How hard is that to do on a nationwide business or on a nationwide basis? It shouldn't be hard. And they're safe. Like the company they use is Safe Sport. Mm-hmm. So you actually have companies now that,
they're facilitating that piece of it. That's great. That's really good. Yeah, man, we could go down that rabbit hole a little while.
I want to say this. Yeah, I want to say this because I know we didn't talk about travel ball too much, and it was really academy based. I still love travel ball.
Yeah,
travel ball has a necessary place for a lot of kids, and I recommend travel ball. Do I like what it's turned into in certain cases? Of course not. I mean, listen, nothing's – I think when you first get into it, everything is so raw and organic and new that you love every aspect of it. Throughout time, like anything, you see changes. People change. People that are no longer involved in it, you miss those people. So, like, there's parts of it that I don't necessarily love, but I do want to believe that the majority of people in travel ball are good people. I've made lifelong friendships and relationships through travel ball. Some of my closest friends have come from our battles on the field or away at tournaments and stuff like that. I just think that it's become this massive thing there's definitely ways to make it better. And I think that, 99% of the people involved in travel ball are great people. It's unfortunately we hear the horror stories of the 1%ers,
For sure.
and it puts a black eye on it, but there's ways to make it better and to get back to what, originally when it first started out, how good it was. And we just got to filter out those 1% people, and I think by doing like I said, a certification or something like that, it might help filter out those people that really don't care and kind of give travel ball a black eye.
That's right. That's right. They'll self-select out because they won't want to do that. You know what I mean?
Correct. No doubt.
Yeah, you're right. We did focus a lot on academy and post-grad stuff, mostly because that's kind of interesting to me. The travel ball's here. It's not going anywhere, and it's probably bigger than ever. There's a lot of expansion, but I tell you what, I do try to remind myself often the phrase "bigger is not always better." And let me ask you this: I'm seeing a little bit of a trend, and I've been talking about this for years now, but I'm seeing it happen where coaches like you are opting into smaller, sort of more targeted type of tournaments. Are you seeing that? Are you doing that with some of your, you're looking at the schedule and you go, I could do this mega event over here, or I could do this smaller, more specific tournament over here?
1,000%. 1,000%. I am opting in for the smaller, tougher tournaments than the bigger ones. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. Like I said, I've made a lot of friends. And they all work for different companies, so I don't want to upset anybody.
Yeah, we're not saying anybody specific.
Yeah, I'm not going to mention anything. But for me, like, my favorite events are the ones that have 8 to 10 teams on it.
Mm-hmm.
I may or may not get my ass kicked that week, but I know it's going to be great baseball, and there's going to be a ton of colleges there because it's all at one place. You know what I mean? And my kids are going to get the most amount of looks because it's an 8 to 12 team tournament. It's at one location, and it's against really good competition. So even if a coach isn't coming to see one of my players, he's going to go see the opposing team's pitcher. He's going to have eyes on my guys. And if one of my guys goes 3 for 4 off the guy that he was just out there recruiting, well, guess what? Now all of a sudden my kid's got some looks versus these larger tournaments that, you're basically driving around everywhere. You're hoping to catch a game. And if you do catch a game, you got to leave in the third inning because you got another arm that's starting across town and, you got to watch him for a couple innings. So I still do those tournaments, but they're not my favorite. I almost feel like they're a necessary evil because it's, that FOMO feeling, right? The fear of missing out. Like, man, if I don't go to that tournament, am I going to cost my players a chance to get seen? Although it's not, it's not fun to drive all across town. It's not fun, to deal with a lot of the traffic or whatever it may be. I don't want to not go to that tournament and have my kids, potentially not get seen. And I'll tell you what, because I went to that tournament, both of my catchers got committed this summer. Yep. So you know what I mean? Like, it's not my favorite anymore, but I do feel like, sometimes it is worth it to go. You just got to suck it up for a week, and hey, this is part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite tournaments are the ones that are like 8 to 12 teams all in one location. And like I said,
I love to win. If only you had your own turf field in South Florida where you could host an 8-team tournament where every single game is played on one field and college coaches could just sit in one seat all day long and watch dudes come through. Man, if only. If only.
I know. Well, it's things that I've been dreaming of for a while, and hopefully, in the next couple months, it's finally here. So
no doubt, man. And this has been fun. I hope you don't melt too many shoes on the turf when that place comes open. But occupational hazard, I suppose.
Listen, the good thing, as much as it rains in South Florida, a couple melted shoes versus getting rained out for the day at 11 a.m., you'll deal with it.
No kidding. No kidding. Well, listen, this has been really fun to catch up. I'm gonna stop the recording, but I'm gonna give you one more minute. Do you have any final words for any coaches or parents or players that might still be listening?
Well, if you're a player of mine that formerly played for me, or a family that formerly played that still listens and keeps in touch with you, just want those people to know how grateful I am for them trusting me with their kids and supporting our program. I feel like, I didn't start this out to be a business or to run an academy. I was a 24-year-old kid that just loved coaching baseball, and I wanted to coach in the summer. And then I kind of fell into everything else, and I've been very lucky to meet some amazing people and some amazing families, and I like to think, you do good to other people and things come back to you. And I do believe in that. So hopefully they feel the same way I do about them. And for those that I haven't met and that, are kind of going through this process with their kid, enjoy the time, enjoy the time that you're spending with your kid. I know that you're listening to this probably because you have a son that, plays high school baseball or is in college and, you're friends with Rich or, hey, you're trying to figure out this whole recruiting process. You'll learn along the way, and there's a lot of tips and a lot of information out there. But the one thing that I'll leave you with is enjoy the car rides with your son, enjoy the tournaments and the hotel rooms with your son, because, before you know it, it's over. And I had parents, I still remember this. I had parents tell me, like, this kid's costing me an arm and a leg between this showcase and that and this and that. And then they come back, and I tell them, I'm like, enjoy it, though. Enjoy this time. And they come back, their son's now a freshman, and they're like, Richie, you were so right, man. Remember how I used to, bitch and complain to you about how much money this tournament or this showcase? He goes, what I would do to get that back, those car rides back, driving, hours together, stuff like that. Now, I got to tell him, I got to yell at him. He didn't call his mother in 2 days. He hasn't called his mom in 3 days. And I tell her, your mother's worried, call him. And he goes, man, I don't get to see him. I would love to. So my biggest advice for these parents and, would be just enjoy the ride, enjoy the process. It's a special time in their life. It's times you'll never get back. And I get it as a parent wanting, the most for your kids. It could be scary, frustrating, all that stuff, but nothing will ever replace, no matter what school he goes to, where he ends up playing, nothing will replace those times that you get to spend with him going to these tournaments and these showcases, and enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride. He'll end up where he needs to. I really do believe that everything happens for a reason. You have a support system. There's enough information out there that will guide you in the right direction. If not, call Rich Prado. Guide you in the right direction. But
don't call me. Phone. The phone is off. Text me. Listen, when the phone rings, I'm like, why are they calling me? Just text me.
No, I know, but in all honesty, man, like I said, enjoy the times with your son. Like I don't have a son, so I hope, I'm an obsessed golfer. When I'm not on the baseball field, I love to be on the golf course. And my little 7-year-old is starting to like the game.
Nice.
So part of me sad, and again, I love my daughters. Part of me sad that I don't have a son to go through this with. Part of me is relieved too. But, I'm hoping through golf, I have those times with Ellie, my youngest one, that she likes this game, and I could drive her to tournaments. Yeah. I could drive her to lessons. I could drive her to, kind of navigating this, but in a different space, because what I'm going to enjoy the most is just the time that I get to spend with her. I don't care if she plays this game past high school, I could care less. What I care about is something that I can bond with her with, you know what I mean? And I would suggest that to the parents and be their biggest support system. You're not going to guide them and lie to them. If they suck, it's okay to tell them they suck, but tell them you still love them. That's tell them, hey, I still love you. Let's just get better at it. And, that would be my advice. Like with my daughters, like I said, I hope she loves golf as much as I do. And that's something that she wants to pursue. And if she doesn't, it's okay too. But if she does want to pursue this, I'm going to be honest with her. I'm going to support her as much as she wants to, as far as she wants to go. And that's it, because really what it's going to be about is the time that we've spent together. And, I try to make it fun for her, like I make sure every time she goes to the golf course, we go eat ice cream after, because I want her memories to be of, hey, I fell in love with golf, not because of the actual sport, but because of the time that I got to spend with my dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
beautiful.
That's my recommendation.
That's so good. Let's shut down the recording there. Don't hang up. We'll keep chatting for 2 more minutes. That was so good, man. Thank you for coming on again. All right.
Of course. My pleasure, man.